Hi, my name is Karen. I am a certified integral yoga instructor and massage therapist at Way Wellness Center in Pittsburgh. In this video, we will be discussing the benefits of meditation and as well as how to prepare for a regular meditation practice. If you have watched the How to Sit video, some of this information will be duplicated, but I feel it is beneficial to hear some of this information a few times. Even in the practices that I've been having for the last few years, it never ceases to amaze me the things that I learned just hearing the basics over and over again. So we'll get started. We'll be talking about what is meditation, what are the benefits, how often you should practice, how long should a sitting be, what are the best times of day to practice, where is recommended to practice, and how is my space best set up for meditation. And these are the ways that were taught to me through my training with the integral yoga practice, as well as some things I picked up over time with experience from different yoga studios on Qigong meditation and Zen meditation, which I've done a very, very, very small amount of. But just so you know that these are coming from a variety of different practices rather than just a singular practice. There are some meditation schools out there that will say their way is the best way and it's the only way, and that's not true. The best way is the way that works the best for you. So if anything that I say works for you, that's great. If nothing I say works for you, then maybe we can try to figure out something else that'll work for you, or you can try to research some other different methods or use something that you know will work for you. In another video, I'll be talking about different meditation techniques. So I won't be covering that in this video. That'll be a little bit more of an in-depth way of seeing how to prepare the mind for meditation. This is literally more of a way to physically prepare for the meditation. So meditation, what is it? It's not what we think it is. We tend to want to think that meditation is turning the mind off and not having anything coming through it, and that's not what's happening. In a practice of meditation, what we're really doing is practicing concentration. If you are familiar with the Yoga Sutras, we have the yamas, the niyamas, asanas, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So these things happen in a specific order. They don't necessarily need to happen in a specific order, but what they're trying to say with this specific order is that the yamas and the niyamas and the pranayama and the asana and the pratyahara come before the dharana, the dhyana, and the samadhi. So what do all those words mean? Yamas and niyamas are abstentions and observances. The pranayama is breathing. The asana is the posture. Pratyahara is a withdrawal of the senses. And then you have dharana, which is concentration, dhyana, which is meditation, and samadhi, which is realization. So the meditation and the realization happen spontaneously. It's not something that we have control over. But because it sounds funny to say I'm sitting and practicing concentration, we have over time decided we're going to call it meditation. So you cannot force meditation to happen, but you can set up everything that you possibly can so that you are in a space physically and mentally so that that meditative presence can occur naturally. So what you're doing is you're concentrating, you're focusing, you're learning how to focus your awareness and not be distracted by the mind itself, rather than saying, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to think about anything and I'm not going to do this and then I'm going to be meditating. And it's unfortunately not going to work that way. We've been sort of taught that if we work really hard and do this and do that, this is going to happen, and meditation kind of teaches us that that's not necessarily what's going on. You still want to work hard, you still want to focus, you still want to put your effort into it, but ultimately the thing that we are seeking will happen when the time comes, not when we want it to. So that's what this practice is teaching us. The benefits of this, obviously, over time, you start to be more patient with yourself, you start to be more patient with other people, you start to experience less anxiety, less stress, because you're not holding on to as many attachments and expectations throughout your day, throughout your life, with other people, with your job. You start to realize that you can do everything possibly you can that is right and at the right time, and it still might go wrong, and that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you, it just didn't happen, and that it's okay and you can try again and keep going. It doesn't have to be this like, oh my god, it didn't happen right now, this way, that way. You just learn over time with the meditation practices that we're not totally in control of everything. It's therefore also can be very helpful for blood pressure regulation. I'm not saying stop taking your meds, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you might notice that you have less and less need as you continue to work with your doctor, that you don't need quite as much medication as you did before to manage your high blood pressure. You might not need quite as much medication as you did before to manage your anxiety or your depression. So it does have a lot of really cool effects that happen over time. Again, everything kind of happens over time and naturally. You cannot force it to happen. This will improve your sleep, it will improve your digestion, it will improve, hopefully, your relationships with other people and your ability to have relationships with other people. It has a lot of immediate but also passive effects that just occur with the practice over time. So how often should you practice to hopefully get these achievements? 1 to 2 times a day when you first start out. If you only have 5 minutes, sit for 5 minutes. If you have 10 minutes and you can do this physically comfortably, sit for 10 minutes. I've had lots of different teachers that recommend 2 times a day for 15 minutes each sitting. I think that sounds wonderful, but I'm also very realistic about it, and I know that a lot of people struggle to get 15 minutes to themselves twice a day. If you have the benefit of doing that, that's great. If you don't, do what you can. And over time you'll notice that your meditation length will be able to lengthen on its own, or that you may not even know how long you're sitting there, and you'll come out of it and realize you've only been sitting there for 5 minutes and it felt like an hour. Or you've been sitting there for an hour and it felt like 5 minutes. It starts to really show you what time feels like for real and not what time we've placed on a clock. It can be very eye-opening about how we fit into our own lives and how we've shaped our lives around time versus what time really is. So that's as far as I'm going with that. I don't want to get too out there for this video, but we'll move on to what times a day are the best. So traditionally early morning. The place that I've spent the most time learning how to meditate, our meditation ideally is at 5 a.m. every day. It's said the Dalai Lama gets up at 3. So what they're going for with this is that you're up before the sun, so that you're meditating as the sun rises, so that you have that kind of special time to yourself before the world is awakened, that you are starting to set the tone for your day. There are some other reasons for it, but again, I'm not going to get way too into the esoteric parts of this. Maybe I could do that in a future video, but the intention of this is just to give you some really basic information. So 4 to 6 a.m. is the traditional time in a lot of practices, but basically prior to or as the sun is rising is ideal. If that can't happen for you, there's nothing wrong with that either. Noon is a good time, and evening around the sunset or before bed is a good time. So those are all traditional times. But if you don't have time at those times, then the best time is the time that works for you, and having a regular time each day. So if you know that 10 a.m. is your time every day, set that for your meditation time. Don't try to force yourself to get up and do 5 a.m. You're not going to get the benefit out of it. Maybe eventually over time you'll be like, yeah, I want to try this 5 a.m. thing. But like right now, look at your life and be realistic with yourself. Like the more changes you try to make at one time, the less effective it's going to be. So do what time works for you, do what amount of sitting works for you. I do have some general recommendations though, that I would not sit in meditation after having coffee. For some people this is not a problem, but for others this makes the mind very active. So depending on why you're drinking the coffee and how you have a reaction to it, I would try it before the coffee the first couple times to see how you handle it. And then I would also do this before you eat, or 1 to 2 hours after you eat. If you're eating a big meal, especially around lunchtime, definitely you want to sit before you eat your lunch meal. But again, finding out what works for you is going to be absolutely crucial. You may also find that doing this practice you may eat less in the evening, just because of trying to set up a good time for yourself to meditate. So again, lots of things to take into consideration for yourself. Recommendations on where to practice. So the ideal, magic sparkle fingers ideal, is that you have a dedicated space, a dedicated room, or a dedicated corner of your living area. Realistically, someplace that you can always go. So even if it's just a corner of your bedroom, and it's not even a permanent setup area, but you know that you can always go to that corner of your bedroom at the same time every day, or you know that you can always go to this park bench at that same time of the day, that's sufficient. The goal with this is to set yourself up so that you're in a routine, so that the body and the mind start to recognize that it's time to sit down and do this. That's your goal. But if you do have a dedicated area where you can set something up, you could set up your own little altar to whatever teacher or divine being or nature, whatever you want to put on that altar, that's up to you. But that should be around eye height. So if you're sitting on a chair, you'd want it up here. If you're sitting on the floor, you want it down at your eye height on the floor. And if you are lucky enough to have your own room, keeping the door closed when you're not in there, trying to keep that peacefulness, that vibration, that cleanliness in that room at all times, so that when you do go into that room to meditate or practice, that it has this feeling, it has this consistent vibrational feeling, however you want to look at it. It's a sacred space to you, it's private to you, it means something to you, it means something to your mind and your body when you get into that routine to sit down to do your meditation. So clean and tidy as best you can. Having your altar if you want one. And trying to use the same cushion, bench, chair, props every time. So having something that you know you'll be able to use all the time, even if it's not totally dedicated to that. Again, in the ideal world, it would be totally dedicated, but if you can't do that, that's fine. None of this should stop you from meditating. You can go sit on a rock outside at the same time every day. It doesn't matter as long as you set the same intention every time. Again, these are all pretty basic things. There is a wide variety of recommendations from a lot of different practices as far as meditation goes. I know a lot more about meditation and the yogic practices. There's a plethora of information about how to meditate in the Bhagavad Gita. There's a bunch in the sutras. So if those are things that are interesting to you, you could always get yourself a copy of the sutras or the Bhagavad Gita. I recommend the two that are translated by Swami Satchidananda. That is the lineage that I'm under, but it's also those two books, especially the sutras, are the most frequently used to teach because they're in such plain language. A lot of the other texts that are on this topic are a little bit heady, they're a little bit academic. So those two particular translations were intended for the regular person to use to introduce themselves to these practices. If you'd like to learn more about those practices from the yogic perspective, or if you'd like to learn more about Qigong, give us a call at 412-772-1461 or email us at waywellnesscenter@gmail.com, and we can set up a private appointment with you, either over the phone, over telemedicine, or in person. Thank you so much.